Hey guys, so I did a video on coding at 50, learning to code at 50, whether it was viable. I'll put a link in the description below if you want to check that out. And the whole issue of freelancing came up. So I wanted to address that a little bit more in depth. Freelancing at 50. So is it viable? I think it's super viable. Because the way the economy is going now, we're seeing a restructuring beginning to happen because of automation, AI, et cetera. As a result, I think we're going to see more and more small independent businesses build out of that. And because you're going to see more and more small businesses, a lot of baby boomers are going to be getting into that game as well, whether they get into the whole web space as freelancers or whether they provide other freelancing services. Like I know people who are retired bookkeepers, but they do 5 or 6 clients on the side, work part-time, a little extra income. I know people who other types of professionals who have decided to, I don't want to work full-time, but I still want to have some income coming in. So what can I do? It's good for your health, by the way. It's like, for me, I think we've seen the data. If you sit around and do nothing, that's the easiest way to find your mental capacity and your physical capacity just plummet. So it's good to stay busy, right? But who wants to go into work every day in your 40s or 50s or 60s, right? Nobody wants to do that. So freelancing is a super viable option for you that way, because if you're a freelancer, you could oftentimes work remotely. You can choose when you work, how you work, with whom you work, which clients you have. Firing clients, by the way, is one of my favorite advantages of being a freelancer. Now, to give you some background, I've been in business my entire adult life. I've been a freelancer for several years in my life. I hire freelancers on a regular basis. To this day, I hire freelancers. And I think, again, freelancing is becoming more and more of a viable option. So, for instance, with my business, I hire freelancers because there are certain jobs that I have that don't require a full-time employee. There's just no reason for it. So, much better off for me to hire freelancers. And for people who understand the freelance game, they set up their business properly. And freelancing is the easiest type of business to get into, by the way. Quickest to get up and running, cheapest in terms of cost, practically zero cost in certain freelance gigs. And so if you're older and you have a lot of domain knowledge, you may be a bookkeeper, you may be an expert in X, Y, or Z, you can come in as a consultant, as a freelancer. Maybe you can combine that with web skills, basic web skills, and you can help small businesses get online or improve their web presence. Something I talked about in a previous video about the web professional. Web professional is not quite a developer and not necessarily a designer, a web designer, or a full-time coder. A web professional is kind of a marriage of the two. So let me give you a scenario. So you're a freelancer, web professional, you have the training, you know a little bit about code, you know your web stack, you're comfortable writing code, you're comfortable setting up websites, installing websites, getting hosting, choosing domain names. You know the difference between using WordPress or build from scratch, or maybe use a web builder like a Wix or a Squarespace. You understand the different hosting options, etc. These are all things that are not directly related to code. But a lot of most small businesses, they're going to need this type of consulting, right? They're not going to know. Should I use a web builder? Should I use WordPress? Should I use Drupal, another popular content management system? How do I install a shopping cart? Can I use PayPal or Stripe, or do I use a Shopify? Should I use Shopify? What do I do? Yada. So the web professional has knowledge about this ecosystem of options, and that's the service that they provide. So I can see people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, obviously in their 30s and 20s, but the advantage of people who are older in this regard is that because you're older, you're going to have a certain gravitas and respectability, because people, this person's older, they've done stuff in their life, they have experience. So you can come in with that, and it's again, it's an interesting niche, and I hesitate to call it a niche because there's such a huge demand for this. And this is where I think the low-hanging fruit and the very profitable and low-stress opportunities are for people who want to freelance in their 50s or older. Of course, as I said, it applies to everybody. This is the perfect client, the small business who needs you maybe a few weeks in a year, maybe a month in a year, and they're going to occasionally call you for consulting work. And, this client, you make $500, here, and you make the $200-300 here, you make $1,000 here, you make $200 here, and you have all these clients. And as I said before, it's much, much better and much safer to have many small clients rather than having 2 or 3 big clients. Why? Because with many small clients, you have a tremendous flexibility in terms of the type of work that you take in, and nobody controls you, nobody owns you, right? So let's say you have 10 small clients, and each of your clients, for the sake of argument, roughly give you 10% of your business. If a client becomes, they become a troublemaker, they become problematic, you just don't want to deal with them. Because they're such a small part of your business, only 10%, you can say, bye-bye, 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 sorry, it's not working out between us. I hope you find solutions elsewhere. Here you go. Sayonara. That's fantastic, right? Whereas you have 2 or 3 big clients who, they're a huge part of your income, each of these clients. They own you, right? It's not a good situation. So this whole web professional space, which I think there's only going to be a growing need, because not only are there going to be a lot of people who are going to be moving out of traditional jobs into becoming consultants, service providers, etc. So let's say you have somebody who wants to do bookkeeping and help businesses, with basic taxes, maybe basic financial consulting. They're going to need a website, right? Maybe you have somebody, you get the idea. So think of all these people who are leaving the workforce, the main workforce, who want to go independent, part-time, full-time, whatever. They're going to need some sort of web presence. So this is where the web professional can come in handy. And the great thing about this, if you're 40, 50, 60, whatever, again, you rarely, if ever, have to meet clients in person. It could all be done remotely. If you're not feeling well one day, it doesn't matter. You just do it the next day, right? Or you do it, 2-3 days later. If you want to work at night, work at night. If you want to work only in the afternoons, you work in the afternoons. That's up to you. Or you just work in the mornings, then you have the rest of the day free. That is the value of freelancing, especially when you're doing the whole web stack. So this is an area that I think is extremely, there's a lot of opportunity there, because a lot of young coders, they want to get into building, what excites them is building apps, building systems from scratch. And they like that idea. They want to get into the super advanced, like Node and stuff, and that's cool. And there's a lot of opportunity there. That's more, working full time for a business, working for startups, etc. And a lot of businesses don't necessarily need to build a custom app from scratch, right? So there you go. I hope that gives you a picture into what I think is coming down the pike. It's already here, by the way. It's not coming. It's already here. I think it's just going to increase this whole freelance opportunity. Let me give you a little history lesson. This is all based on my own personal experience, by the way. I'm not just pulling this out of the air. I didn't read books and then regurgitate this to you. Everything I talk about here is from my personal experience. And so for me, I had a very serious physical illness, a blood disease. And for years, it would knock me out. It would just like knock me out for days, like heavy duty fatigue and mono. And so as a result, I made my choices. I saw that coding and development was the key to me being able to do okay, and more than do okay. Because of that flexibility, especially as a freelancer, if I didn't feel like working that day because I was sick, I didn't have to. So what you learn as you develop your freelance business and skill sets, shameless plug, my course below will teach you all this. You learn to structure your business. You learn to structure your relationships with your clients so that you have that flexibility. So here's a little tip. Let's say you look at a particular project. A client needs you to set up their website, install WordPress, put in a theme, et cetera, et cetera. So you look at it and you go, okay, this is going to take me 1 week of work to get it off. So you say to the client, okay, we're going to need about a month. And most clients will go, okay, about a month is cool. So you've given yourself a lot of leeway to be able to build this project, So, so you do 2 days in the first week, you do 3 days the second week, that kind of thing. And so, it's a simple tip. It's not like earth-shattering insight here. You just structure your timelines in terms of your delivery dates so that you give yourself a lot of lead time just in case, something comes up and it's a sunny day, you don't want to work today. You go out. I do that all the time, by the way. I admit it. And life's too short to be constantly just working, work. I'm one of the originals, and I can say this with confidence because this goes back to the 90s. I'm one of the original digital nomads, I suppose, if you will. I'm one of the original lifestylepreneurs, like literally one of the originals. And back, because I was doing this in the 90s. I had things set in place. I had, when I was freelancing, I had a stable of clients. I would rotate work as my freelance business became more robust and more refined. I had frameworks and processes, workflows in place. I teach about this in my course, by the way. So everything, as time went by, I was freelancing and my processes were becoming more and more automated, meaning I was able to get X amount of work done with less and less and less and less effort. The cool thing is I was still able to charge this much time, even though I was actually only putting this much time. And there's nothing wrong with that because I was able to reduce the time it took me to get something done because of my frameworks, because of my workflows, this intellectual property, this IP that I had developed for my own purposes. And I remember I had a discussion with a friend of mine who was a more experienced developer at the time, and I thought about that. I said, am I ripping people off by using my frameworks to get the job done in much less time? And he goes, no, because you put all that extra time developing that framework, coming up with the workflows, coming up with the technology. So that's your property. So, you own it. You have a right to, in essence, by using my frameworks, my coding frameworks and my workflows I had developed, I was in essence licensing my IP, much in the same way when you pay for a computer, you have to pay for the licenses for the software, right? Somebody's got to pay for that investment in time. So what would happen, here's one of the things. When you first start out as a freelancer, let's say a particular project may take you 10 hours to do. But as you develop skills, you become better at what you do, first of all. As you develop good workflows, as you add frameworks and processes, as you learn to do a bunch of different things that you can do to get the job done much quicker, instead of taking me 10 hours, all of a sudden, over time, it took me only 2 hours to do. But I would still bid 10 hours. And then I would give them a discount, take it down to 8 hours. And they're like, 8 hours. Now everybody else who hasn't developed workflows or good frameworks are still have to charge 10 hours to get the job done. But you're able to come in because you got all that IP that you use, your intellectual property, you're able to come in and only charge 8 hours. And they're going, wow, it's a deal. And it is a deal because you're getting the job done versus a competition for 20% less. Meanwhile, though, you're only working 2 hours, right? And that's the beauty of it all. And not only are you working only 2 hours, because you have your workflows and your frameworks and those structures in place, the quality of the work is going to be better, much better than your original work if you had to do it from scratch that full 10 hours every time. Why the quality is better? Because your frameworks are going to be refined. The code base is going to be vetted. Your workflows will be refined. As a result, the output from those workflows are going to be better. So everybody wins in this situation. This is a classic example where the business, though is very profitable, the client wins quite a bit. Meanwhile, you are charging 8 hours and you're only working 2. That's why you can go out and do what I used to do. I used to be the professional getter of coffee. That's what people would say about me for years. People would say, "What does Steph do?" And people who didn't know me too well, because I played my cards close to my chest, you don't want to talk about your personal business too much. And people would say, "I don't know, he just gets coffee."